Hello, everyone. This week has delivered two significant pieces of news that directly impact every single American receiving Social Security benefits. It's crucial information, and I want to ensure you get it directly, because it's the kind of news that often doesn't make the headlines on the nightly news or in your bank statements. The first piece of news arrived on June 9th, and it concerns a critical deadline that has just shifted closer. The second came just days later, based on the newest inflation figures. This news could mean more money in your monthly checks, but it comes with a major catch that you absolutely need to be aware of. In this video, I'm going to break down both of these developments in simple, clear language. I'll explain what they truly mean for your personal financial situation and lay out what you should be thinking about for each one. Before we dive in, please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. The information we're covering today is breaking news, and this is precisely the kind of vital update I track so that you don't have to. Subscribe now, and let's get into the details. Let's start with the news from June 9th. This update is about a clock that is ticking faster than before. Every year, the Social Security Administration and the Department of the Treasury release a document known as the Trustees Report. This is an official government analysis that details the financial state of Social Security and projects how long its funds will last. This year's report was released on June 9th, and the headline number you need to know is 2032. That is the year when the main Social Security Retirement Fund, officially called the Old Age and Survivors Insurance (OASI) Trust Fund, is now projected to exhaust its reserves. Here is why this year's date is so much more significant than previous projections. The depletion date has moved forward yet again. In the report from last year, the projected date for the fund running out of reserves was the first quarter of 2033. This year, that date has been moved up to the fourth quarter of 2032. That's a full quarter earlier. Now, a 3-month shift might not seem like a lot, but it means the date has moved closer again, in the wrong direction, getting nearer instead of farther away. The trustees' own report even explains why the date shifted. A major tax bill that was signed into law in 2025 actually reduced the amount of income tax that Social Security beneficiaries are required to pay on their benefits. While that sounds like great news for retirees, and in the immediate term, it is, it also has a downside. It means less money is flowing back into the Social Security system. This reduction in revenue is what has accelerated the timeline to the fund's depletion. So, what would actually happen in 2032 if the fund's reserves run out? This is the part that many news reports get wrong or describe in a vague and confusing way. The trust fund running out of money does not mean Social Security stops entirely. The system will continue to collect payroll taxes from every person working in America. However, here is the critical part. Those incoming payroll taxes are only projected to be enough to cover about 78% of the benefits that are promised to retirees. This means that if Congress fails to act between now and 2032, all benefits would be automatically cut by 22% across the board. This cut would apply to every single recipient, no matter their age, their health, or how long they have been receiving benefits. Let's put that into real numbers. The current average Social Security benefit is about $2,081 per month. A 22% cut would mean a reduction of $458 every single month. If you receive $1,500 a month, the cut would be $330. For someone getting $2,500 a month, that's a loss of $550. This isn't a theoretical exercise about something that might affect other people. This is a direct projection for every person currently on Social Security, and it's now less than 7 years away. Major organizations are already sounding the alarm. On June 9th, the AARP issued a formal statement that called on Congress to take immediate, bipartisan action to secure the program's future. In the days that followed, the nonpartisan Bipartisan Policy Center and other analysts published their own breakdowns. They noted that the window of opportunity for making gradual, manageable reforms is closing fast, and the longer Congress waits, the more severe the required changes will have to be. So what does this mean for you, practically speaking, right now? If you are already collecting Social Security benefits, the most important thing to know is that nothing is changing today, tomorrow, or next year. The current benefit system is fully funded through 2032 under the laws as they exist today. This is not a situation that requires you to take immediate, panicked action. What it is, however, is crucial information. You need this context for when you hear politicians discussing Social Security reform over the next few years, and you will be hearing about it constantly. You need to understand the real stakes. A 22% benefit cut isn't just a random number. It's the mathematically calculated outcome of political inaction based on current law. If you have not yet started receiving your Social Security benefits, this report adds another layer to your claiming decision. Some people will be tempted to claim earlier out of worry, but it's important to understand one thing clearly. If an across-the-board cut ever did take effect, it would apply to everyone on the rolls, including people who already claimed. Claiming early does not shield you from a future cut, and it does permanently lower your monthly benefit. On the other hand, waiting until age 70 gives you a higher monthly payment, but it also means a larger share of your retirement income would ride on Congress finding a solution before 2032. Neither path is automatically right for everyone. The decision still comes down to the same things it always has: your health, your other sources of income, and your own read on whether Congress will actually get something done. Now, with this added layer of political uncertainty. The point isn't to scare you into a snap decision. It's to make sure that whatever you decide it with the most accurate information available, and ideally alongside a qualified professional. Now, let's shift to the second major piece of news. This one is based on the latest inflation data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The May figures were released this week, on Wednesday, June 10th. Each year in October, the Social Security Administration officially announces the Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA, for the following year. That adjustment is calculated using a specific inflation measure, the cpi-w, during the third quarter of the year, July, August, and September. The official 2027 COLA is still months away from being announced. However, independent analysts closely track this monthly inflation data as it's released. They publish early estimates throughout the year to give retirees a sense of which way the wind is blowing. This week, those estimates took a significant jump upwards. As of the May 2026 data, the cpi-w is running at 4.4% year over year. That is the highest it has been in 3 years, and it's being driven mostly by energy costs. Prices for gasoline and home utilities are up sharply, largely due to global pressures, while food prices are continuing to rise even faster than the main inflation numbers indicate. Mary Johnson, a respected independent analyst who has been tracking Social Security and Medicare policy for decades, updated her COLA forecast this week. She now projects a 4.7% adjustment for 2027. She also noted that there is a strong possibility it could climb even higher as more data comes in over the summer. The Senior Citizens League, a nonpartisan advocacy group for seniors, is also projecting a high COLA, currently at 3.8%. To give you some context for these numbers, the 2026 COLA was 2.8%. That adjustment added about $56 to the average monthly benefit check. In contrast, a 4.7% COLA in 2027 would add approximately $98 to the average monthly benefit, nearly double this year's increase. If your benefit is $2,500, a 4.7% COLA would mean an extra $117 per month. For a $1,500 benefit, it would add about $70. But here is the important nuance, the catch I mentioned earlier. A higher COLA definitely sounds like good news, and in terms of raw dollars, it is. But you have to remember that a higher COLA is a direct result of higher inflation. The adjustment is trying to keep up with rising costs. Consider this. The 2.8% COLA you got in January 2026 raised your average benefit by $56. But based on the current inflation rates from May, analyst Mary Johnson estimates that it would actually cost you $94 more per month just to maintain the same purchasing power you had 1 year ago. Think about that. Your check went up by $56, but your costs went up by $94. That gap between the adjustment and real-world costs is what is silently eroding the purchasing power of seniors every single month. This is a structural problem that even a higher COLA in 2027 can only partially fix. More money coming in is always better than less, but if the cost of your groceries, gas, and medical care is rising faster than the adjustment, many retirees still end up falling behind financially despite the bigger check. According to a new survey released this week by the Senior Citizens League, a staggering 44% of retirees, that's 24.8 million Americans, now rely on Social Security for 100% of their income. Just 1 year ago, that number was 39%. In an environment like this, the gap between what the COLA provides and what inflation actually takes away becomes incredibly important. So, the practical takeaway on the COLA is this. The 2027 adjustment is looking like it will be significantly larger than this year's. That's good news for your monthly budget in dollar terms. However, it's not a reason to make any sudden financial moves. The official number will not be finalized until October. The inflation data from July, August, and September will ultimately determine the final calculation. If the current high inflation trend continues, the adjustment will be quite meaningful. If energy prices happen to stabilize, it could end up being lower. Your best bet is to watch for the official announcement this fall. For now, just knowing that the trend is upward is useful context for any financial planning you're doing. So, let's quickly summarize the key takeaways from this week. First, the 2026 Trustees Report, released June 9th, has moved the Social Security Trust Fund depletion date to the fourth quarter of 2032. If Congress doesn't act, all benefits face an automatic 22% cut. That new timeline was accelerated by a recent tax law change. Nothing changes for you immediately, but the window for gradual reform is now officially less than 7 years. Second, based on May inflation data, the 2027 COLA is currently projected to be between 3.8% and 4.7%. This would nearly double the dollar increase from this year. But the final number depends on summer inflation data and won't be set until October. And remember, that large increase is a direct reflection of inflation that is already putting a strain on seniors' purchasing power. Always be sure to verify details with official sources or a qualified professional before making decisions. Please subscribe and share this video with anyone you know who depends on Social Security. I'll see you in the next update.